Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. It's my great pleasure. I'm slowing down a bit while the slide comes up. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you here to CAN and CGM's Roundtable on Building and Biodiversity for the Built Environment. And I hope that's a title that that resonates with all of you. It took us a while to come up with it. Just going back to the background of this, in 2021, the CEO Action Network on Sustainability and Climate Governance Malaysia held 14 roundtable sessions, which included more than 4,000 attendees, 50 speakers, and across 4 main industries. And out of this came a report of the proceedings. And the construction center was one of those industries. And in the construction sector, we had 3 policy recommendations. 1, reduce operational and embodied carbon impact. 2, second, to improve governance and awareness of sector greenhouse gas emissions. And 3rd, to conserve biodiversity and natural carbon sinks. Within this, enablers were 2 enablers: to promote conservation of biodiversity in buildings and infrastructure plans, and 2nd, to promote the reduction of urban heat islands with increased urban greenery in developments. Those are the green bottom part of the screen you are looking at now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, most of us are unlucky or lucky enough to live in cities and urban centers. Only the minority of us Malaysians live outside of these centers. In 2006, 18 million people, 1/8, lived in urban areas. In 2018, that had risen to 24 million. So basically today, 2022 or 21 anyway, 77.7% of Malaysians live in urban areas and cities. As our large towns and cities expand, of course, pressures increase. Pressures on natural resources, ecosystems, and the climate in general. Conserving, restoring, and enhancing ecosystems requires all of us, really a multi-stakeholder approach to align policies and actions. We would like to hear from all stakeholders on the way forward to preserve what biodiversity we have and to reintegrate biodiversity back into our cities where it has been lost. So today we are in the capable hands of our esteemed moderator, architect Ar.Serina Hijjas, and she will introduce our wonderful speakers that we have today. I'm very pleased actually, because this is actually you've heard of manels, you know, these infamous male-only panels. This is the opposite. It's a female-only panel, and I'm very excited to hear from them. Now, Ar.Serina, let me introduce her briefly to you if you haven't heard of her. She is a director at Hijjas Kasturi Associates, a leading architect's practice in Malaysia. She's designed so many things. Most recent one really has been the Malaysian Pavilion at the recent, quite famous Dubai Expo 2021. And she also designed, many of you may know, the fairly new Heriot-Watt University, I believe, in Malaysia as well. And she is Deputy VP of Malaysian Green Buildings Council and also Chairman of the Green Buildings Accreditation Panel. So, you know, if you're coming up to get one of your buildings accredited, you know, be nice to her. So Ar.Serina is going to take over now, and my great pleasure to hand over to her. Over to you, Ar.Serina. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dato Johan, for the introduction. And yeah, we're very excited today because I guess this is probably one of my favorite topics on biodiversity and building. I think this is the way of the future. And we're very fortunate to get 3 different perspectives from panelists. We purposely went out to find case studies of what municipalities are doing, what developers are doing, and what Singapore is doing in the race to adopt and include biodiversity at a much larger scale within our built environment. So in this roundtable, we have Town Planner Aniza binti Osman. She's the director of the planning unit of Majlis Bandaraya Shah Alam, Perancang Bandar dan Desa. We have Lian, who's the Group Chief Sustainability and Communications Officer from GAMUDA Berhad. And we have landscape architect Yvonne Tan from the Singapore Green Building Council on Urban Greening, Technical Committee Chair, but is also a director at DP Green Landscape Company in Singapore. And she is also the first Vice President of the Singapore Institute of Landscape Architects. So without ado, let's move to the first speaker and panelists. From Town Planner Aniza binti Osman. Next slide. Just a little bit of an introduction on the Town Planner Aniza. Town Planner Aniza holds a bachelor degree in planning and is a corporate member of the Malaysian Institute of Planning. She started her professional practice before joining MBSA as a director of OSC since 2009 to 2010. She's a director of planning of MPK after that in 2011 to 2012. And now she's the director of town planning department since 2013. So for the past almost 11 years. 11 years? No, sorry, almost 9 years for Majlis Bandaraya Shah Alam. Town Planner Aniza binti Osman worked on the Shah Alam Voluntary Review 2021 under UN Habitat, implementing the 2030 agenda in the city of Shah Alam towards accelerating SDG implementation within the municipality. Shah Alam is probably the first city to participate in Malaysia's SDG Cities Network. And they had 5 development trusts, and one of this includes 5 policies on environment in the draft Shah Alam Local Plan 2035. Various programs are included under this landscaping green development, of which Town Planner Aniza binti Osman has been part of. So I'd like to call on the panelists, Town Planner Aniza, to give us some highlights of what Majlis Bandaraya Shah Alam has been developing in terms of biodiversity in the built environment.
Hello. I will share my slide. So actually what Shah Alam have done regarding the low carbon cities, we have several program, and also we already prepared our action plan for low carbon, and also we have our SDGs roadmap. And recently we already have our VLR, voluntary local review, to show that our commitment to how serious we are to this low carbon. So is it time for me to show my slide?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Full screen would be great.
Okay.
Are you okay in making it full screen, Town Planner Aniza? If not, just widen the screen and the picture will appear a lot bigger. Just pull on the right and left of your overall page.
Can you see my slide with the full screen?
Not on full screen just yet. Is there a bottom right hand for full screen on your computer?
Is it okay?
Not yet. Perhaps,
I think later, can we start with panelist, second panelist? Because I have problem with my slide.
Okay, no problem. You can share it and we can do an introduction on Ong Lian and then we can come back to you.
Okay.
All right. No. Thank you, CGM. If you can just share the second speaker and we'll do a quick introduction and we can start with GAMUDA Berhad. So Ong Lian, if you stop sharing, yes, thank you very much. Ong Lian is the Group Chief Sustainability and Communications Officer and Executive Director GAMUDA Berhad, and she's helming two roles, dual roles, as I say. She's appointed not only as Executive Director of GAMUDA Engineering since 2021, but she's also the Group Chief Sustainability and Communications Officer. And this is quite a big portfolio to hold because it's for the entire company. She's held a central role in corporate and project communications that including leading the successful implementation of communications and stakeholder strategies for Malaysia's first metro systems, the KVMRT Line 1 and Line 2, for GAMUDA, for the project delivery partner, MMC GAMUDA, and continues to steer group corporate communications and sustainability. She currently leads GAMUDA's sustainability business strategy to raise the group's visibility on ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and build allies with stakeholders to create sustainable infrastructure in the construction and property industries. As we are moving forward, as you know, big corporations have to submit their ESG reporting. And for GAMUDA, Ong Lian is heading the team on this. She builds internal understanding and advocacy around the group's sustainability goals and approach to holistically integrating ESG across all business operations. She's also responsible for developing and overseeing the group's sustainability report and plan. So give a big applause for Ong Lian. I know virtually we can't do this, but welcome, Ong Lian.
Thank you, Architect Serena. Let me just share my screen. Hope you all can see my PowerPoint.
Yes, perfect.
Great, full screen, huh? All right. So a very good afternoon to everyone. I shall share the journey that GAMUDA has gone for sustainability. We started our journey in the last 6 years, but I like to say in the last 24 months, we have actually intensified this journey. So today I'll just spend the next 5-10 minutes sharing the case study and strategies from the group itself. Right, so a little bit about GAMUDA. We are basically an engineering and a construction company. We have 3 core businesses: engineering, construction, property development, as well as infrastructure concessions. And we are a regional player. Currently, we are very active in a few key markets, basically in Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, Vietnam, and Taiwan. Okay. As I'm not sure how many of y'all are aware, we do have the GAMUDA Green Plan, which we have established since 2021. Now, the GAMUDA Green Plan basically roadmaps the very clear directions on here to reduce direct and indirect corporate greenhouse gases emission intensity by 30% in 2025 and 45% in 2030. Now, a lot of people have actually asked me, so is GAMUDA towards net zero in 2050? The short answer to that, yes, we are towards net zero. And the GAMUDA Green Plan basically marks the next 5 years with a look ahead of beyond to 2030. Now, we have 4 main key pillars. Pillar 1, as you can see here, which is sustainable planning and design for construction, which kind of touch at the beginning of the introduction. when you have the paper that says, how do you reduce operational carbon impact? So basically, pillar 1 covers that. Pillar 2 is basically our social part of the ESG, our community and our business. Pillar 3 is environmental and biodiversity conservation, and pillar 4 is enhancing sustainability via digitalization. For today's focus itself, I will stress on pillar 1, especially on pillar 3. Now, to give a little context when it comes to biodiversity, in GAMUDA, we have this aspiration, a commitment where we will plant 1 million trees by 2023, which is just next year. So most people will naturally ask, as I'm doing carbon accounting as well as reporting, where do we stand in this 1 million trees progress? As of today, this year itself, we have planted about 60% of our 1 million trees and sapling planting target. Now, the next question most people ask, where are you planting all this? What kind of technique are you using? So all trees and saplings are planted using the Miyawaki technique. I'll not go so much into the technique, but basically this technique is very suitable for an urban setting. It helps to build dense native forests. It helps plants to grow 10 times faster, and the resulting plantation is actually 30 times denser than usual. So it's faster, it's more dense. Now, the areas where we actually grow this 1 million trees across GAMUDA's developments is actually at Kundang Estates, GAMUDA Cove, as well as GAMUDA Garden. So just sharing some of the pictures of the actual planting at the site. We can't do much when it comes to planting if we do not include the local communities where we are operating. Now, we know the indigenous communities are very good when it comes to nature, when it comes to planting, and which is why we have decided to place the Orang Asli's culture and experience as the focus of employment program. Now, if I can turn you back a little bit, remember about the 4 pillars. We have pillar 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pillar 2 is basically where we include the community in our business, and this is where we amalgamate everything together, and this is where we bring the Orang Asli's involvement in it. As of to date, we have provided 200 employment opportunities at our very own arboretum and nurseries, which is all part of this 1 million tree. It is called the Wild Seed Tree Bank through the advanced tree planting. Together, besides the planting and everything, there's of course the sale of crafts and farm produce, which is all part of the eco-education programs. So this is again just to show how we involve the local communities, and some pictures here again about the planting of the nurseries as well as providing employment. So we are bringing employment, you know, the whole ESG aspects, the economic, the environment, the social part all in together. I'm pretty much sure that the first speaker from MBSA will be covering on the low carbon cities framework, but to complement it as well, we are implementing the low carbon cities framework. As of today, we have implemented 2 in our projects. The first will be GAMUDA Cove, which it is the first private township in Malaysia to be recognized on the 5 diamond rating. Now, in GIS, what is the 5 diamond recognition is about? It's about achieving emissions reduction in energy, water, mobility, and waste. Again, back to the GAMUDA Green Plan, this ties into the pillar 1, which is design and planning. Now, the second project that we are involved when it comes to implementing low carbon cities framework is our project in Penang, which is the Penang South Islands. Just a little gist of a summary of what we are doing at Penang South Islands, which is actually implementing a 40-meter wide mangrove wetlands, which is all about biodiversity conservation and to mitigate any possible shoreline erosion. As we know, we have to do about carbon sinks, creating carbon credits. So this is where it all plays a part. And the second one is, of course, most of us are very familiar, which is the urban heat island effect. The more trees you plant, the denser it is. It provides not only shade, but it actually has that cooling effect. The other one is actually bringing nature closer to humans, to community. And this is again the S part with the pillar 3 on biodiversity conservation. And this is where we are building and planned a 3-kilometer stretch of new sandy beaches at Penang South Island. The other part when it comes to the environment conservation part, which is on top of it, which is, of course, we have the ecology offset program, we have the artificial reefs, we have the mangrove planting, the release of fish and prawn fry. So this is all part of the project implementation. Very good if I can again bring you back to the pillar 1 and pillar 3, as planners and designers, and even as a property developer, be it whether you develop a township or develop an infrastructure, the planning and design stage itself is very important. In the whole life cycle process itself, the design and planning stage is where you set the most of your carbon efficiency at the operational stage. So therefore, we placed a lot of emphasis at the pre-development stage as well as the development stage. So if I can bring you just for attention, how do we measure the success of biodiversity? At the end or at the completion of a project, we do a baseline count first. We do what at the baseline, what is actually there at the land itself, and therefore we do a biodiversity audit. And then this is part of the development stage where we have the 1 million trees commitment. We have the advanced tree planting where we cultivate trees for 2 years in advance at the nursery. We apply the Miyawaki technique. We maintain the native species. And this is where we do the monitoring of the progress. We look at conservation of trees under the IUCN red list and stuff like that. So at the end of the day of all your development stage and construction stage, and this is where we have the landscape maintenance and we have the audit again. This is one of the case studies. Of course, in GAMUDA itself, we have a very strong team that looks into all this, in all this architecture part when it comes to landscaping and all the green. We have GAMUDA Parks policy, which looks into the blue, green, and brown ecosystems. When it comes again to the social part as well as the governance part, we have the community part. We ensure that again, the interaction between the community, the human beings, as well as nature is all brought in together. There's no point building something which is very far, in a far distance where no one can actually experience it. And therefore, in the township planning itself, we ensure that the connectivity of the greens with the houses are just within 5 to 10 minutes walking distance. We have dedicated space for the community to enjoy, be it at your communal park, which is the central park, or be it in front or nearby your housing area. The other part is one called the standards and compliance. So this is where we have the Green Building Index itself. And then this is where we incorporate the biophilic features into our homes. And then of course, besides the biodiversity part, the greens and the fauna, we have to ensure that the green infrastructure is in place. And this is where again, carbon accounting comes into place. We want to ensure there is a modal shift from private vehicles to more to cycling, to more to walking, to a public infrastructure as well. So this is where we entail the whole part when it comes to pillar 1, your design and your planning comes into play. This is basically a very interesting slide, which actually shows what we have been planning, what we have been constructing, what is your end result? How do you know whether what you're doing is actually working? And this is where, just to give you a quick summary, this is GAMUDA Gardens, one of our latest townships. We did a biodiversity audit back in 2013 at the pre-development stage. Now, if I can bring to your attention just the yellow highlighted portions. From the biodiversity audit at that time, we only recorded 10 species of fauna co-recorded. As of another few more years after you have done all this, and you can, to date, you can see we have 22 species. So from a 10 to a 22. So this is possibly the end result of all the green conservation that we have done at the site. Bringing a little bit further to infrastructure itself, what I've touched just now was purely on the development, property development side. In Australia itself, there's also what we call the ISCA or ISC, as they are now known, Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australia. A huge part, as you can see here, green infrastructure and environmental impacts is a key theme when it comes to the planning and design stage of any infrastructure projects in Australia. So this is basically just to give you a flavor that, this ESG or sustainability or biodiversity conservation is really starting not only to be a trend, it is actually a compliance and a standard requirement. Now, a little bit on global ESG alignment. GAMUDA is one of the signatories and an official supporter to TCFD and science-based targets. Now, the whole gist of why most companies are aligned to these global standards is basically to ensure it's very science-based. As you know, a lot of reporting is quite qualitative. By aligning ourselves to all this, it gives you the quantification of this to ensure that it's, managing a risk of any greenwashing. And this is, again, just on the global reporting frameworks. GAMUDA is also the only Malaysian company, if I'm correct, so far, to be listed on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, voluntary assessed when it comes to this ESG ratings. So as I end, maybe I'll keep this to the last slide, which is basically moving forward. Because I'm very involved in ESG ratings as well, what is expected by the rating agencies. My personal take is moving forward, I think green accounting is very important. Biodiversity threat is severely undervalued when it comes to ESG. And I think this is something where the public and the private sector can come together. And maybe this is something we can talk about it later in the Q&A. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lian, for that incredible breadth of work that GAMUDA is doing, and a lot of insights. And I'm sure the journey of ESG isn't too easy, but we'll get back into that with some Q&A. I see some questions coming up. Please do list them, but we'll go back first to our first speaker so that we can actually get the entire picture, and we'll address all the Q&As at the end of that. So thank you very much, Town Planner Aniza, Haji Osman. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Architect Serina and all the participants. Okay, first of all, thank you to Secretariat because inviting Shah Alam City Council to share our initiative regarding the low carbon city framework. So based on the topic being given to me, I will share regarding our initiative towards low carbon city frameworks. Next. Hello. Okay, just very brief regarding our city profile. Land area of Shah Alam is around 303 square kilometers, and we located at Petaling and Klang districts. Currently, our population is around 670,000 people, and we have 3 branch office located at the north, central, and also at the south of Shah Alam. Next slide. Okay, this is our journey towards sustainability. We starting regarding this sustainability is 1998. We follow the agenda of Selangor State regarding the Agenda 21, and after that we have we create our local agenda ourselves, Shah Alam LA 21, and then we just follow what the direction from the state. We join the Murninet, and at year 2015 we starting our SDGs, which is we focus on low carbon action. And then after that, we several program we have done regarding the low carbon, and year 2017, we recognized by the Apex and selected Shah Alam as a low carbon model town, phase 7. And then we start partner with Hijjas and be the selected as a Malaysia frontrunner city. And then year 2020 we launch our SDGs roadmap, and last year we have our VLR report. Next. So this is very brief regarding the SDGs. Have 17 goals, 169 target, and 230 indicators lah. But in Malaysia, we modified it to 106 indicator based on our current situation. Next. This is our SDGs roadmap. So Shah Alam is the first city in Malaysia to produce an SDGs roadmap. This document outline the direction that the city of Shah Alam needs to take to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs to achieve our target. Okay, next. This is the sustainability diagnostic process to produce our SDGs roadmap. First step, we follow the Malaysian Rapid Assessment. We list down all our project, all our action plan, such as Shah Alam local plan, our strategic plan, and all the policy. So next step, we do engagement with the stakeholder. So based on that output, we produce our VLR report based on 5 principles, 5 focus, and 10 key initiative. Next. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is during the last year on July, we present our VLR to the United Nations at high level political forum by our mayor. Next. This is our SDG roadmap and our VLR report. Next. So this is the content of VLR report. Next. So Malaysia also have the Malaysia Voluntary National Review. So based on that report, also include our initiative, also mentioned in the Malaysia VNR at the Article 12, pioneering the low carbon city development in Shah Alam City. Next. So this is the link between the low carbon city framework and the SDGs. So there are 4 elements of low carbon city: building, urban infrastructure, urban transportation, and urban environment. So we realized that by doing the low carbon city, actually we also delivering the 10th element of SDGs, such as the SDGs number 3, 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, 11, 12, 13, 15, and also 17. Okay, next. Just want to share regarding what we have done at early stage. We choose our town center as a pilot project. Location is section 14, Shah Alam. So total land area is around 395 acre. Within this town center, there we have 23 building owner. And then for first round at year 2015, very hard to get cooperation from them. We only achieve 52% out of them, but we never give up, and we do the explanation, briefing, and so on. And Alhamdulillah, at year 2017, we get full support from the all building owner, 23 building owner. Next. So this based on that cooperation, we can get information regarding the electricity consumption to easier for us to make the calculation. Next. So we transform our own building to low carbon building. Actually, this is our building, Wisma MBSA, and we do all the step to achieve the low carbon. So there are, in term of design, we change it, not the design, the tool and the all the equipment, building appliance. We do the minor renovation, retrofit, and control the operation. So by doing that, actually, we realized that we can have a saving monthly around 200,000 and yearly around 2.5 million. Next, by that we get the diamond from the ministry. Next. So this is a example what we do to transform MBSA to low carbon building. So from the energy saving, water saving, and another initiative. Next. So we also build up, produce our green office practice guideline. So we do and inform all our staff to practice this green office. Next. So with the community, there are several projects that Majlis have been done, such as mini ZB. So the objective of this mini ZB program is to build the communities that love the environment. Next. Also, we Green Earth project. This project involve all the primary school in Shah Alam. Next. Also, we beautification our back lane. Yeah. This is example at section 4. So back early greening initiative purposely aim to transform the residential back alley to a hygiene, cheerful, and green alley. Next. This is the back lane of commercial area. So we do some beautification. Next. Also, back lane of industry area. Next. So we also do the separation at source, 3R recycle program. Next. So this is our recycle center. Actually, total together we have 6 recycle center in Shah Alam. Next.
Juan, we just have another 3 minutes. Yeah?
Okay, okay.
Thank
next.
you.
Okay, next. Okay, this is our campaign, no polystick bag campaign, no polystyrene. Next. Okay, next. So food waste composting. Next. Trees for life. Next. So we also have a program Shah Alam Car Free Day, free bus Smart Selangor. Next. So actually our target is to reduce the carbon 45% in 2030. So this is our low carbon action plan. There are 6 strategies and 24 game plan and 66 action. Next. This is the list of that strategy. Next. This is just I want to share what our achievement at international level. We get the certificate from the Apex to be as a local model town at year 2017. Next. This is our achievement. Next. So we also joined the conference at international year 2020 WUF World Urban Forum at Abu Dhabi, also inviting by Expo Dubai, and also last year, not last year, this year, World Urban Forum at Katowice, Poland. Next. So this is what we have achieved. Next. So as a conclusion, and this is our way forward to this sustainability and low carbon. We plan to expansion our low carbon zone area. We will involve all our 6 township in Shah Alam to involve with us and participate with our program. So we plan to increase increase the number of strategic partners. So build the data system, database called My Eco Plan. So we will do the GSG inventory and measurement, and also we strengthen our guideline regarding policy. Next. So another is as a way forward, we will enhance the program, also variety that event. Also maybe we will rebranding or do some new program. Next. So we will give certain incentive and recognition to all the champion of low carbon in Shah Alam, and we will supporting the circular economy to help our community. Next, I think that's all from my presentation. So Earth is not our legacy, but a trust for future generation. With that, thank you to all. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Planner Aniza. Thank you very much for very comprehensive, and actually you've covered a lot wider spectrum with regards to what MBSA is doing. I just would like to introduce our last panelists before we go into a very quick Q&A. I see lots of questions piling up. We have with us landscape architect Yvonne Tan, is a Singapore accredited landscape architect with a keen interest in placemaking, biophilia, increasing species-rich habitats, and creating wellness and therapeutic landscape. She's a director of DP, a green landscape architect firm, and arboricultural consultancy. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. A studio based in Singapore. She's a practitioner with over 25 years in designing, delivering international projects, from award-winning landscape planning, placemaking, urban design, park infrastructure, recreational, waterfront, civic, institutional, mixed development, and a vision to create positions of projects for the future, which I think is most important at this stage. Yvonne serves as the chair of the Urban Greenery Technical Committee for Singapore Green Building Council since 2016. She currently serves as the first vice president on Singapore Institute of Landscape Architects. And we thought that the contribution from Singapore with regards to demystifying the city of nature and the targets that Singapore is doing together with national parks, landscape, we couldn't ask for anyone better but from landscape architect Yvonne Tan to give us insights on how we can actually move the needle further. Thank you.
Hi everyone, hello from Singapore. I'm just sharing my slides. Okay, let me get to full screen. Okay, yeah, so Singapore is actually quite small, island city. We currently have about 728 kilometers square with 5.64 million population. I know we seem to keep increasing our land space. Singapore in 1963, it started its concept of sustainable development as a garden city. But as population grows and the livability becomes an issue and a concern. And it shifted in 1998 into becoming a city in a garden, and then moved on in 2020 to rebrand the focus towards city in nature. And to basically do this, it's really not just from ground up, it also has to be at the government, the national level. So the National Parks Board, we have this Nature Conservation Master Plan, which is basically initiated by the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. And this looks at consolidating, coordinating, strengthening, and intensifying the biodiversity conservation efforts. And so there are 4 trusts. One is looking at the conservation of key habitats with the following objectives of safeguarding, identifying, safeguarding, and strengthening the core areas, also to secure and enhance all the buffer areas around the core areas, and also managing and enhancing additional nodes of greenery throughout the nation. Ecological connections are very important, as well as how to integrate nature with the broader urban landscape in a very dense city. The second trust is about habitat enhancement, restoration, as well as species recovery. So there is a focus on habitat enhancement and restoration in the core areas, buffers, other greenery nodes, as well as ecological connections, and also focusing on endemic species. So native to Singapore, native to Southeast Asia, as well as looking at the conservation status of these species, rediscoveries, as well as reintroductions into the island. The third trust is about applied research in conservation biology and planning. So it focuses a lot on monitoring efforts, as well as ecological research, and using up-to-date tools such as GIS, DNA technology, and databases, as well as the science-based policy formulation and management, and also applying the research through managing human and wildlife interactions. And the fourth trust is about community stewardship and outreach in nature. So with all the policies in place, there also needs to be a buy-in, and there also needs to be ownership. And this is fostered through Community in Nature, CIN initiative, which connects and engages different people in the community. And these activities could be incorporation of biodiversity into all levels of the education system, citizen science, as well as the development of the Singapore Biodiversity Atlas and the greening of schools for biodiversity. So the greenery urban systems approach in Singapore, the first one is about hierarchy of greenery within our urban matrix, from a macro level of national parks down to the community parks in the neighborhood. And the ecological connectivity is very important. So protecting and building our natural heritage. We don't have the vast natural heritage of Malaysia. So whatever we have to really, really look after and improve. So it's about conserving key nature reserves and areas to maintain and protect biodiversity, as well as using various strategies to extend this natural capital and weave it very intensively into the urban areas. So you can see with the green arrows, this is how, from island-wide, this is how the connectivity is going to flow. The 5 key Singapore ecosystems, the lowland dipterocarp forest, the freshwater swamp and streams, mangrove, intertidal, as well as coral reefs. And these are the statistics. You can actually go into the link at the bottom right. It actually tells you what is the latest count on our Singapore species. So it's quite interesting. I mean, I just found out yesterday that we have 800 over spider species, a bit interesting. So with all this, with the buy-in from the grounds up, right? We also, nationwide, there is a BioBlitz, and this was launched in 2016. So in 2022, early this year, the BioBlitz focused on 4 taxa, which is the birds, butterflies, bees, and dragonflies. And participants will come from trained scientists, naturalists, volunteers, members of the public, and basically they can choose from a list of parks that's, to survey the taxa that they're interested in. This field study can range between 24 hours to 1 week. So this has been going on. This was a picture from 2018. This is the butterfly watchers from this group, the Butterfly Circle. So, you can see from the kids to whole families, harnessing the citizen science. So the next approach is about the canopy of green. It is about selection of tree types and implementing the standards to make sure that greenery is everywhere and very pervasive in the urban fabric. It also includes overlaying greenery onto our various infrastructures. This includes roadside trees, parking lots, overhead bridges, roofs. So this is 2016 study by MIT and World Economic Forum, Urban Green Canopy. In that study, we actually came up #1, where the Green View Index was at 29.3%. And it goes to show that, it doesn't matter how big or small your site is, there are still possibilities to weave the green in and also weave the biodiversity in. So this is just an overview in comparison. Singapore, so 38.5 meters square of green per person. And then in Sydney, they've got 3,000 over, but their Green View Index is at 25.9%, which is lower than the 30%. Okay, so over the years, you can see the vegetation cover has increased. From 1986, it was 35.7%, even though with all the development over the decades, intense development, at 2018, we were more than 50% vegetation cover. This looks at, from planning, from policy, as well as all the guidelines. It looks at safeguarding 7,800 hectares of green spaces. What we have now is 2 national parks, 4 nature reserves. These are the targets that they're looking at. So it's 350 parks, 370 kilometers of park connectors, 3,500 kilometers of streetscape, as well as 6,700 hectares that are tree conservation area, which means that you cannot cut the tree without approval, especially for trees that are greater than 1 meter girth. It also looks at vertical green walls, sky gardens, and green roofs. And what is interesting is that in 2010, we had 10 hectares of skyrise greenery. In 2022, we are already at 143 hectares. And the target is at in 2030, so we're well ahead of target. 2030, we are supposed to hit 200 hectares of skyrise greenery. So how this comes about is also, it is through incentives. It is also through rules or requirements. So under the new stage of urban planning for National Parks Board, it looks at, these are the targets, which are another 200 hectares of nature parks, another 140 hectares of gardens, parks in the next 5 years. Waterways and water bodies will be naturalized. It's about conserving more than 70 native species, enhancing more than 30 hectares of habitats, planting 1 million trees by 2030. But this is island-wide. So I think it's commendable that GAMUDA is achieving it just within their projects, 1 million trees. Park connectors, another 500 kilometers length, as well as industrial estates, which are typically quite hot, to add in 100,000 trees in there to add to cooling the environment, as well as another 300 kilometers of nature ways along the roads, and the achieving that 200 hectares of skyrise greenery. So how do we look at this from a simpler point of view? It's about having the ecological connectivity. So it's about having nodes and corridors. So the nodes are the parks, the nature areas, the nature reserves, and the corridors are our roof gardens on our buildings, the nature ways, the streetscapes, the park connectors, and even the community gardens or the community farms. And all these spatial components actually provide the physical conditions to foster better biodiversity within a very dense city. So in restoring nature into urban landscape, it looked also at naturalized planting in parks, as well as enhancing this island-wide greenery network. And so, the link is below on the right. This is the park connector in Singapore. So it basically links everywhere. You can actually cycle around the island. And within the park, these park connectors, there's actually nature ways. Nature ways, currently, we have about, I think, 150 kilometers length of nature ways. And what are nature ways? Nature ways are mimicking the 5 strata of the forest. So from understory, shrub layer, canopy, as well as the emergent. And this allows the insects, the animals, the birds and butterflies to have a safer connectivity throughout the island. What's interesting, during COVID, there was a survey because during COVID, there was less maintenance. Everything was rewilding, growing more like huge bursts of green. And 90% of respondents actually said, yes, they liked it. They liked it, that they were accepting of the less manicured landscape. So NParks is now looking at which areas are going to be naturally rewilded, as well as human enhanced vegetation. The 1 million trees I spoke about earlier. So this is currently, we are at, I think it's aiming to basically absorb 78,000 tons of CO2. And as of yesterday, they have planted 442,997. So they're coming to the 500,000 mark soon. And this is not, these are actually planted not just by the government contractors, these are also by the community. So they actually sent out emailers, and you get to choose which area you want to plant and participate in the planting. So for the basically, this is the third the approach. So it's about rules, incentives, and land zoning policies. So two things. One is that there is like a compulsory environmental impact assessment, as well as an environmental impact study for sensitive projects that are close to sensitive habitats or nature or species-rich habitats, as well as enforcing green buffers, rooftop and skyrise greenery to be incorporated within developments. So this is a Straits Times article. So this is basically taking, I think it was this year basically, National Parks Board is taking back and they will be managing the EIA consultants directly on behalf of all the developing agencies. This is to standardize survey methodologies, as well as to develop the best practice guidelines. And this will then, all this information will then feed into a centralized biodiversity database. And this will then help in the island-wide, modeling the island-wide connectivity, as well as the ecological profiling. So with all these greening initiatives by our agencies, which is the Urban Renewal Authority, as well as the Building Control Authority and the National Parks Board, there are three key programs. So the first is called LUSH 3.0, Landscaping for Urban Spaces and High Rises. This was launched in 2009, and this is already now the third version of it. This is mandatory, it's regulatory, and it is giving incentives to inject greenery into developments using the landscape replacement area, as well as looking at the quality of greenery and benefits to the community. So for example, for strategic areas that are identified, they will tell you that it has to be 100% landscape replacement. So if your site is 10 hectares, you need to inject 10 hectares of landscape space in there, out of which 40% must be green. Okay. Under the Building Control Authority, it's launched in 2005, it's mandatory, so it focuses on resilience and health and well-being. And the National Parks Board is on Landscape Excellence Assessment Framework, and this really focuses on the quality and ecological role of greenery and the benefits to the people. And so the LUSH program, the 3.0 that I talked about, has contributed over 250 hectares of greenery within developments since 2009 to 2020. And you can see it's a mix, it's a huge mix of different developments, from institutions to hospitals to mixed developments, offices, as well as residential, and even the integrated hubs. So this project, Kutek Wat Hospital, winner of the first ever Stephen Calliot Biophilic Design Awards. It has more than 700 species of native plants. It's very biophilic. And I think it has about over 7, I mean, the rooftop also, you know, you get the birds, you hear the birds within the hospital instead of the machinery noise. We have another project where it's a vertical kampong. So it focuses, like, this has 50 species recorded. So 19 birds, 22 insects, 9 mammals. And you can see that even though it's a very dense project, there are opportunities if you focus on the right species, the right bird-friendly, pollinator-friendly, to create the habitats that we require. This is a public housing in Singapore, almost 6.6 hectares and 1,420 dwelling units. This actually focuses under the Housing Development Board. It focuses on provision of wildlife habitats. So in a lot of our provisions, it actually looks at under the requirements, 10% of your softscape has to be habitats and natural habitats. Yeah, so that's the end of my presentation. Back to you.
Thank you for that, what seems to be a rapid fire presentation, Landscape Yvonne, and thank you for catching up on time. I'd like to invite all the three panelists, and including Johan, Raslan, to actually put on your cameras. And I'm going to quickly go through some questions. I believe Lian is going to answer a few directly, but I'm going to start from the back onwards, some questions that are last in and first out. Michael Yam says, compliments to the speakers on the enlightening presentation. There's an implied cost increase, at least at the CAPEX stage, for all biodiversity efforts. And I wanted to listen because obviously this is from a developer's perspective and home ownership as perspective. This means property developers and even payers would need to pay more. With the current middle income trap situation we're in, doesn't this worsen house ownership affordability? Lian, how are you finding that in terms of adoption in the engineering, construction, infrastructure and property developments of GAMUDA with regards to increasing or putting a position on biodiversity in your master plans?
Honestly, it's very hard to put a price tag on biodiversity because the impact, the benefits of it, it's generational. So we shouldn't put a price tag to it. But in business sense, yes, there is a green premium when we invest in plants and even manpower to plant it. But this is something whereas from a private developer, this is something we think and we commit to it, it is worth the investment. And it's very gratifying when to see purchasers or even potential purchasers or even our shareholders who come and visit our property development and actually see the benefits of it beyond what is reported and what is published in the media. They can actually feel when they take the buggy ride, and they can feel when they're in the hot sun and when they go into a place where it's more cooling, they can actually feel, the temperature going down. And when they visit the show house, when they see, how is it like to see the trees and the lakes outside just at your doorstep? As I said, it's very hard to put a price tag to it. And it's something I think with the whole pandemic situation where the office comes into your home, you spend more time with your family. And this is something where I think moving forward is something inevitable.
Thank you. I have a question both to MBSA town planner Aniza and also to landscape architect Yvonne. This thing about green spaces and ecology, is this drive from developers' own conservation awareness or from a stick approach due to stronger planning laws and regulations? And is there a position to take a more stick approach, MBSA, for example, on setting your own percentage targets? I've noticed that Singapore has a vegetation cover of 35.7%. I don't know how much of that is commercial and how much is that state. Interesting enough, Shah Alam has 38.7%. Sorry, I read the local 2035 commitment to biodiversity, and MBSA's Shah Alam has 38.7, which is a combination of both commercial and state-owned green parks and spaces. So how do you see with regards to the conservation awareness? Town planner Aniza, maybe you might be able to see whether you have to put a stick approach to stronger planning laws and regulations to beef up the biodiversity and building environment.
Okay, thank you, Architect Serina. So regarding the the conditions of green space and so on, actually regarding the providing the green space park for public, actually we have the main policy to all the developer is all the developer must provide 10% of their area to give as to the as a open space. So but actually what type of open space that we ask the developer to provide, we have the detail and we have the manual what type of green space, what activity needed at the area.
Yvonne, what's
Yeah.
I think the perspective from Singapore, it's a stick effect, or is it?
I think it's kind of both. Initially, we basically wanted the government to help us landscape architects, because usually in value engineering, the landscape is probably one of the first few items to be value engineered. Okay. Yeah. So, however, a lot of the developers now actually.
Sorry, Town Planner Aniza, you might have to just mute for the time being.
You might have to mute her. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
So for a lot of the developers right now, the greenery index as well as the biodiversity, the branding that landscape brings is actually becoming quite an important unique selling point for their projects. Similarly, if it's a grade A development, a grade A office development, it's actually, I think, same with GAMUDA. It ties in with their whole approach, right, in terms of sustainability and so on. So I would say that right now it's not just top down, it is also ground up as well as from the developer's side. Also the buyers are also actually for projects that are having biophilia as one of, or well-being as one of the key selling factors, right? They sell out very fast.
Okay, I have a question with regards to what is the link. There are two separate questions, but I think perhaps Lian, going through your exercises on SBTIs, will be able to tell us a little bit about the built environment, biodiversity, ESG and SDGs, because we've heard from the municipality about their drive on SDGs. So at a municipality level, they're driven by SDGs. At a corporate level, they're driven by the ESGs. How are the two linked? Is there a link between ESG and SDG?
Yes, there is a link, especially when it comes to reporting. The UN SDGs, basically, you have the 17 goals, and then each of these goals, you have the indicators under it. From my observation, I realize a lot of people, they say they're aligned to whichever goal, without realizing that each goal have the respective indicators down there. And sometimes they only fulfill 1 out of the 4 or the 5 indicators. But I think from a person who does reporting, I think to have the SDGs is a good way to start. It gives you that realization, what are the areas that should be implemented. So, but it should not be something where you use it as a marketing tool and says, okay, I'm aligned to these SDGs and therefore I'm green, or stuff like that. Yeah, so there's definitely a link to it, as been comparing to other reporting platforms, whether it's on the MSCI or whether it's on the TCFD or whatever. Basically, the E and the S and the G, if you look at it holistically, everyone is looking or monitoring the same thing, the same kind of indicators. It's just possibly the level of percentage for each of it and how intense it is. Yeah, so it just depends on a person or organization which one they choose to go on a reporting scale.
Has it been a difficult journey to adopt ESG? I think that's on the minds from scope 1 to scope 3, and having a supply chain of scope 3. I've seen a question here with regards to scope 3 emissions from the supply chains. Are local Malaysian suppliers able to provide that information back up to you or support you?
If you have asked me this question 3 years ago, I would say it's a horrible journey to be embarking on. It is because 3 years ago, no one even know the difference between sustainability or ESG. But if you ask me again today, I would say at least our Malaysian counterparts or Malaysians generally, they know what is sustainability. Now, in terms of carbon accounting, yes, the scope 1 and scope 2 and scope 3. Scope 3, when it comes to construction sector, high percentage, 60 to 70% belongs to scope 3. And I think having this kind of forum, it adds a lot of value and creates awareness, because there's only so much a private player or a single player can make a change. And therefore, we need everyone to hold hands. And we realize there's a need for scope 3 to everybody come on board the supply chain, which is for GAMUDA perspective itself, in this year itself, as a per GAMUDA Green Plan, we have stated that by 2026, we hope that our supply chain has some level of sustainability commitment come 2026. And therefore, we have taken the initiative this year to conduct complimentary sessions to our top business partners and suppliers to at least get them on board for the next 2 years. Yeah, so it's all about carbon accounting and to make sure that all of us are in this together come another 2-3 years down the road. But yes, it is not an easy journey, Serina.
Okay, I think we are coming close to time. I know there's quite a few other questions. I know there's some questions on waste to Town Planner Aniza. We weren't covering waste per se, but obviously there are aspects that comes into that, and maybe circularity will be the next episode with regards to CAN CGM. But I want to ask a very quick fire question to all three of the speakers here. 3 things you want people to remember, the diehard developers to the diehard landscape architects and all the rest of it, in terms of this journey to increasing our biodiversity. What are the 3 things that you want people to remember? Perhaps Town Planner Aniza, maybe I may ask of yourself, what are the 3 important things that you feel that people should remember?
Hello, okay. So for me, what regarding the sustainability, biodiversity, what we must the important thing is we must start with ourselves first, and then maybe it can deliver to others.
Serina, you're muted.
Gillian, what is your take on what's your takeaway on what we should remember?
And just one key takeaway. I remember one of the questions earlier asked about CAPEX. And I think this is where the push and pull has to come in. I think as more people ask for more green environment, you know, be it where you're staying, where you're working, and that's where the policy comes in, the public and the private sector all comes in. And I think the green premium will no longer be a premium. And I think for the regulators, I think this is where the push needs to come in. And I think this is where the nature-based focus accounting has to be paramount in order to create this push. If not, there's, like I said, there's only so much a single player or a private player can do.
But yeah, thank you very much for that. I think it's a great inspiration of what you're doing, and it's certainly not easy, but what you're saying is the rewards are there, and it will become a business as usual. At the moment, it isn't, because we're right at the start. It's a bit like renewable energy. And, you know, 10 years down the line, it's a must what we have to do. And I think the urban heat island problem of studies that have come out already from Malaysia is already showing that, you know, temperature difference of 5 to 7. And in the next 15 years, if the temperature difference isn't taken into consideration, our temperature will be that of Sandakan, and our wet belt humidity will be so high that heat island and heat stroke will be an issue. Coming back to Yvonne, yes. What would you say would be the one thing that you want people to remember?
That biodiversity is your friend. It actually reduces a lot of maintenance if you get the right balance. and that your building or your development site is actually a node or a link to the larger macro ecological network. So embrace it, but use science to embrace it too, because it's not about just using pollinator-friendly species or plants. When if that fauna species is not even there, yeah. So it needs to be researched and not just putting in like butterfly attracting plants, but not understanding the whole cycle of the butterfly. Then it's kind of just greenwashing without the really creating a performative landscape.
Thank you very much. I see there's a few questions that popped up about the Miyawaki, and I'm sure that GAMUDA Parks will be able to provide some of that information. I do know that in Penang itself, they're also studying the type of species to plant for the longevity of it and how fast it grows, for the maintenance of it. So I think those sort of studies, including the Miyawaki, are basically going to arrest some of your concerns with regards to tree planting and the maintenance of it all. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful session. I think we need to get more like this involved again, so a much bigger audience. Like to thank Town Planner Aniza, Landscape Architect Yvonne Tan, and Ong Ji Lian for sharing your journey in biodiversity in buildings. You can also, just a quick note, the recording of today's webinar will be available on the Property Sector Roundtable in 2 days' time on YouTube, and also sign up for CAN CGM's newsletter to get details of upcoming events. We are covering a lot of other sectors, and we are trying to get out to as much as possible information with regards to greening our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Serina.
I learned a lot. I'm still digesting, Yvonne. And Jillian's, because I do know there's quite a bit of information there, so have to digest that and see how we can increase. I think this carrot and stick issue, there will be a little bit of that, unfortunately. So Town Planner Aniza, we need a lot more in terms of Majlis's support or carrot or stick to initiate, greening our environment as a priority. I see that the idea of this is also to share so that you can see if there's incentives that you can leverage on. And because the strength is coming from both sides, both at the Majlis level and of course at the development areas. Okay, thank you very much.